Hey everybody, a bunch of you know me. For those of you who don't, I'm Donna Cease. I'm the Spiritual Programs Coordinator here at Kadampa Center, and I have just a couple of quick announcements. And one of them, I always love doing this one at the end of the unit on karma, because it's related to karma. I'm sure you've been learning that one of the benefits of understanding something about karma is knowing that since you've created the conditions that you're experiencing in your life right now, you have the ability to create the conditions that you'd like to see in the future. And it's partially on the basis of that understanding of karma, and also on the basis of just our pure appreciation for our experienced students and members who come and serve as teachers in the Discovering Buddhism class, that at Kadampa Center we really cherish and value the ability to have these teachings here, the ability to have people to share this information with us, because it's so precious and so important. And so we want to create the causes for us as a center to continue to exist and continue to be able to offer teachings and to have good teachers. So with that in mind, we have a little offering to Dawn as a thank you. Okay. Well, we don't need to, but we think we should. We think it's important. And on that note, that gives me a great segue to the next thing I wanted to talk to you about, is that just as we as a community of Kadampa Center appreciate our teachers, you as individuals who are taking the class might also be interested in creating the causes to continue to hearing the teachings. And one of the ways you can do that also is to support Kadampa Center. You know that we offer these classes at no cost, and that's because we don't want anything to be an obstacle to anybody coming and having a chance to hear these amazing teachings and to be able to apply them in their lives. But so that means that we rely on the generosity of our students to support us. So if you feel so moved, we would love to have your support for the class. There's a donation box right outside the door to the Kadampa. You can also make offerings online, and that helps to keep us alive and keep us going forward, and allows us to continue to be able to offer teachings like the Discovering Buddhism course with teachers of the caliber of Dr. Don Brown. So thank you, and you guys have a great night and enjoy the rest of the class.
So preliminary prayers that we do on Sunday mornings are page 34 is where they start. I'm not sure if that's what you wanted.
Yeah, this is good. This is good. So I've explained these to people. So I know there's some new people here tonight from local university, or I think, where from? Which school? Where? Athens Drive. Any other students? Where? Meredith. Okay. Well, welcome. So this is the last class, but it'll be a review. So kind of as much as we can, we'll review it. So I'm not going to go into a lot of the details. I'm nursing myself back to health. So by the way, I don't think I'm contagious. I have a dangerous job, daytime job, hanging around sick people all day. So it is what it is. By the way, whenever I get sick, Robbie tells me, Robbie Watkins, the center director, he tells me to rejoice that I'm burning up negative karmic seeds, The karma's finishing. It's good. I mean, otherwise sickness is just to be I hate being sick, blah, 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 but to try to put a positive spin on it, hey, I'm, using up negative karma. Good deal. All right, so the refuge in bodhicitta. Again, these are like, we're planting seeds, and that we have this huge garden. By the way, just for these new people here, from the Buddhist perspective, there's not the creative force in the universe is karma. It's kind of an impersonal God, you might say. If we do this, we get that. If we do that, we get something else. And it just, and it's not personal. It's kind of like gravity. Boom. It just happens. That's the laws of the universe. And that's how we create, how this life has been created, and all of our future lives will be created through the karmic seeds that we plant. So these prayers, we think of these prayers as being like planting the seeds for our future happiness. And if our motivation's pure, so the first thing you think about before you take refuge in bodhicitta, refuge means you're relying on the enlightened beings, their teachings, and the spiritual community. And we're doing that because, number one, we dread the thought of what the future is going to look like with a mind that's out of control, we can't even count 10 breaths without getting distracted. Our mind is out of control. And life is, mental suffering's way worse than physical suffering. We know that. So we dread living the rest of our life out with a mind that's completely crazy or crazed in a sense. Now, some of us are more that way than others, but everybody has to deal with disappointment and dissatisfaction and sickness and aging and death and so on. It's just, you can't get away from it. So we have that dread, and then we have confidence, and this only comes from practice. You don't believe, so you have confidence in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha, the enlightened beings, the teachings, and the spiritual community. Confidence in them, and compassion, because we need a method to stop the suffering of others, and we trust that the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha can actually help us develop this notion of universal compassion, not just compassion for the few people that we love and care about, but for all living beings. So that's the key, taking refuge. And then bodhicitta, it has to do with that notion of universal compassion. May I become enlightened in order to help everyone. So that's the That's the refuge and bodhicitta prayer, which we'll do first. 3 times. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. Reverently, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, actual and imagined. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time and rejoice in the merit of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence and turn the wheel of Dharma for living beings. I dedicate my own merits and those of all others to the great enlightenment. And then the short mandala offering. This ground anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha fill and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. Idam Guru Radna Mandala Kamne Yatayami. So we're going to start out with a few minutes of just breathing meditation, or actually we're going to use the word mindfulness of the breath. It sounds a little bit more exotic, but it's really what we're doing. We're being mindful of the breath, and we're going to, with each exhalation and inhalation, we're going to mentally, softly make a note 1. And the exhalation, it's kind of like we've got 2 little, guards at our nostrils, and they're counting out in 1, out in 2, like that. So you want to focus your attention, tip of your nose, and sit up straight, arms a little bit away from your side. And then when your mind gets distracted, which it will, if anybody gets to 10, that'll be great. And if you do, but it's not a big deal, because if you do this long enough, you're going to get distracted again and again. And each time you start over. Just start over at 1. No big deal. Just be kind to yourself. Don't make this into some sort of competition. So we'll do this for a few minutes. And again, just start again. When your mind is distracted, you notice that has a tendency to go off on tangents, usually in the beginning toward things that we're attracted to, that our mind is attached to, so we just bring it back again and again. So we're going to do a little contemplative meditation now, just a guided meditation. And you start out by imagining friends or a friend to the left, a stranger, somebody you feel attached to the left, somebody you feel indifference toward, the so-called strangers, which makes up the vast majority of living beings, and then somebody that you feel some aversion toward. It doesn't have to. You don't have to think of them as like an enemy, but you might have somebody like that you just, the thought of them or the sight of them would cause you to feel aversion toward them. So you imagine those three categories of beings, realizing that those are simply labels that are impermanent. They're changeable. Friends can become enemies, and strangers can become friends or enemies, and so on. They're just very changeable. So we have to develop this equanimous state of mind where we're not, because we want to develop compassion for everyone, not just our friends, but universal living beings. That's our goal. That's the intention of our practice. And then we think, we recollect that everyone wants to be happy. The Dalai Lama, if you've ever heard him speak, he says this every single time he talks. He says, we all want to be happy, we don't want to suffer. We all want to be happy, we don't want to suffer. We're just alike in wanting that. We're equal in wanting happiness and not wanting to experience pain, suffering, but mental and physical. So we're all the same. And then we talk about the real demon, if there's a devil, and from the Buddhist perspective, the real devil of the source of all of our problems, the source of all the negative karma, the source of all the suffering from the beginningless, from the beginning of beginningless time. We don't posit a beginning to time because there's always a moment before that, right? So you can't really say there's a beginning. But from the beginning of beginningless time up until now, and going into the future, all the suffering is caused by one demon. The devil sort of lives in our heart, in the sense, in our mind, heart slash. And it's this we have this sense of an exaggerated self that we cherish. We call it self-cherishing selfishness. It's like, this is the cause of all the problems, all the negative karma, all the lying and killing and stealing and adultery and all the three of body and the four of speech and the three of mind that we talked about, the 10 non-virtuous actions. They all come from or motivated or generated by this mistaken sense of I, where we do exist, right? But we project a false sense of I that's exaggerated. We cling to it, and if somebody says something that I don't like, what do we do? We get upset. Or if we find something that I want, we obsess about it. And we ride this roller coaster throughout our lives. We're never, ever satisfied. Even when we get what we want, we know it won't last. And it doesn't. And then we're right back where we started. This ego just drives us crazy. And we need, and it's an illusion. That's the beauty of it. It's not beautiful. It's sad. All our suffering is unnecessary. When we see through the illusion of this false sense of I, we're free. We cut the tap root of all the negative karma that causes all the suffering. So it's so important to know this and to make this discovery, not just intellectually, but in our day-to-day lives. All right, so that's the cause of all suffering is self-cherishing selfishness. And the cause of all happiness is its opposite, cherishing others. Cherishing others. If we cherished others, we wouldn't kill. We wouldn't steal from them. We wouldn't harm others with sexual misconduct. We wouldn't lie and deceive them or slander them or speak harshly or frivolously. Hatred, greed, and ignorance. If we cherished others, none of these negative behaviors would arise. So we need to develop that attitude. So we need to exchange our selfish, self-cherishing attitude for the mind that cherishes others. So we'll do a little brief meditation now where you won't go very long, but imagine yourself in front of you. We're going to imagine yourself and then your friend and then a stranger and then the enemy. And we're going to practice wishing them well and taking their suffering. Wishing yourself well, taking suffering. So that's, may you be happy and have its causes is the Buddhist definition of love, but those are just words. There's actually a feeling that goes with those words. May you be happy and have its causes, and feel it. So imagine yourself, could be yourself now or yourself when you were a kid, when you were having a rough time, and you want to give yourself a lift. You think, may you be happy. May I be happy. May I be free of suffering. And feel it. May I be happy. May I be free of suffering. May I be happy. May I be free of suffering. May I be safe, happy, healthy, and live with ease. May I be free of suffering. May I be safe, happy, healthy, and live with ease. May I be free of suffering. And you can match this up to your breath. As you breathe out, you're breathing out, the loving kindness. And as you're breathing in, you imagine you're taking on the suffering into your own heart. Just do that silently for a moment. And imagine someone that you're attached to, and just do the same thing. We'll say, in this case, may you be happy and have its causes. On the exhalation, and on the inhalation, we're taking their suffering onto us. So we breathe in their suffering. May you be free of suffering and its causes. And as we exhale, may you be happy and have its causes. And inhale, Be free of suffering and its causes. Do that for a minute. And now we'll skip to the enemy, the so-called person that we feel aversion toward. And the reason that we're actually starting out wishing them happiness is because if someone that we dislike is suffering, we actually might rejoice in their pain and suffering. So we want to pick somebody that we dislike. Could be a political figure, those of you who are struggling with that one, and think, may you be happy and have its causes, and be free of suffering and its causes. May you be happy and have its causes, and be free of suffering and its causes, and try to link that up to your breath. As you exhale love or happiness, and as you inhale suffering or the act of compassion. And then the next step in this guided meditation is we make the determination. It's Robert Thurman, who's a Buddhist scholar, he calls it a messianic vow, which sounds kind of weird, but it's like it's something that it's an attitude of mind that we want to develop. It's that I am personally responsible for everyone's happiness. That may not be, you may not be ready for that one, but it is an attitude that can be cultivated with familiarity, particularly if it's based on genuine love and compassion, not this biased compassion where I've got enemies and I don't really want to, I don't want them to, they're not my problem. They got their own problems. But what we want is this universal compassion. I'm personally responsible for the suffering of all living beings, and to help them eliminate the suffering and guide them to supreme enlightenment by myself alone. This is the heroic attitude of we call them the spiritual warriors, the bodhisattvas, these holy beings who've developed this amazing selfless state of mind, which is sincere. And then, of course, the next step is that we realize there's work to be done. We have to eliminate our faults. We have to develop our good qualities. We have work to do. We can't even take care of ourselves. Forget about guiding universal living beings to supreme happiness. We need to practice ourselves. We need to practice ethics. We need to live ethically. We need to develop concentration of mind like a laser that can penetrate any subject that we place it on and gain realizations. And then this view of wisdom that sees the reality of our existence, that strips away the projections. Islami Yeshi says that we spray paint our world with our own prejudices and karmic projections, and we believe in it, and we react to it, and it's a mistake. It causes so much suffering. We see through that. We develop the wisdom of emptiness. Develop this compassion, wisdom, and become enlightened. And then, once we get our act together, then we can truly make a difference. And all along the way, as we take baby steps toward, eliminating our faults and developing our qualities, we become more and more able to help others, just little by little. We don't have to get it all done in this lifetime. We have many lifetimes ahead, but we want to make as much progress as we can in this lifetime. So try to develop some feeling for this altruistic intention to become enlightened based on sincere, heartfelt, unbiased love and compassion for all beings. And then we want that motivation to carry through, that this motivation, which we call the awakening mind, or the Bodhi mind. We want to have that motivation carried through the rest of the discussion tonight. So you can relax your attention. I don't know if anybody knows what these are, but probably some people have a few. This is an albuterol inhaler. I've been wheezing this week, so excuse me. It's not vaping. Vaping's bad, right? I think everybody's learned that by now. I hear all these stories about kids, young people trashing their lungs, destroying their lungs, doing that. All right. So I went and I stole the answer key. Not really stole it, but I took it out of the teacher's material. And anyway, I'm going to ask you to ask some questions tonight and ask you to maybe break into little groups of people and discuss it. I know there's some people here that are new, but also I want to go over, before I just did this class, I wrote down some things that I thought were really important. And so I want to go over a few of these right now before we jump back into the questions. So my 11-year-old daughter, see, she gives me a hard time. Anybody have daughters? I think daughters are different than girls are a little different than boys sometimes. Anyway, she's on my case big time right now. And so, when she does something, I say, look, and this is actually true. The most the power of the karma, one of the key factors is the object. Okay? For example, negativity directed toward your teacher has huge, powerful negative karmic consequences that could actually ripen in this life. Whereas positive, sort of devotional attitude toward a powerful object like a Buddhist teacher, like a genuine teacher, not just somebody like myself up here, parroting what he knows, but as a sincere teacher, like someone like Geshe-la, has powerful effect on the mind. But your parents are the same way. Our parents are big time, powerful karmic objects. And so our actions, our attitudes, our words toward our parents have can have huge karmic consequences even in this lifetime. I was speaking this afternoon. I'm unplugged. Venerable George is coming. Anybody know Venerable George? Anybody? Raise your hand if you know who he is. And not many people. You know? Yeah. George Chernoff. I've met George 40 years ago, I think, in Nepal when I first got introduced to Buddhism. Anyway, he was a monk then, still is. He just finished like a 3 or 4 year solitary retreat up in the mountains of North Carolina, and he's going to be here. He's coming on, I think, Halloween, actually. Or no, the day before Halloween. And he's going to teach on 3 weekends. And George has been a monk. He's, he's a very interesting guy. He said, he sort of puts himself down. He says, I'm not, a lot of the monks and nuns that took robes back in the day when he did eventually quit and got married. But he says, I'm not handsome enough, so it didn't happen to me. But he's a brilliant guy. He has a physics degree from MIT, and very smart man. And he can answer our questions. He'll be here, like I said, 3 weekends, and then during the week he'll be here for like 2.5 weeks. But anyway, I was chatting with him this afternoon. And we were talking about how karma can ripen in. We think of karma as ripening either in this lifetime or the next lifetime or some future lifetime, which could be thousands, who knows how long, many, many lifetimes from now. But it's very rare for karma. So, for example, if you donate money to Kadampa Center tonight, and please do, but don't expect to win the lottery in this life. It doesn't work that way. Karma, for karma to be powerful, it has to be selfless with no expectation of anything in return. So if you want to support Kadampa Center because you want these teachings to be available to you and to future generations and so on, because other people have been here before who made it possible for you to be here. So you want to make other people give them the opportunity. If you want to give with that kind of mindset, but don't expect to cash out in this lifetime. It doesn't work that way. But it might. Like I said, if it's very, very powerful, if the object is pure and your motivation's pure and it's powerful and you've done it and you repetitively practice this virtuous action or non-virtuous action, it could ripen in this lifetime. So we have to be very careful because karmic seeds are like that. Well, anyway, I told Annabelle, I said, you need to be careful how you talk to me because that's really bad karma. You know, we got a boomerang hanging in the kitchen. You know, what goes around comes around. It's all framed and everything. And she goes, I don't believe in karma. What if karma's not true? Okay? Good question, isn't it? Remember what I said in the first class? We cannot 100% prove karma is true. We know, well, if we don't brush our teeth, we get cavities. If we don't pay our bills, we end up getting in trouble or whatever. I mean, we can see cause and effect all in simple ways. But basically, karma is saying that our whole world is created by our former actions. Everything. Not just your interpretation of yourself and me in here tonight, but everything. Why you're a man, you're a woman, every aspect of your life, of our lives, is the fruition of past karmic actions. We can never prove that. We can't prove it. We can prove things based on direct perception. We can prove them through reasoning, right? And other times we have to rely on scripture. And this is one of those situations where we have to rely on the teachings of the Buddha. The Buddha was said to be omniscient. He knew everything. And he said, this is how the universe works. This explains everything. And if you want to be happy, you'll live this way. And if you don't want to suffer, you'll live this way. And if you don't care, if you think karma is just for Buddhists and it doesn't apply to you, and you just go about your business, see what you get, you know? But as Lama Zopa said many years ago, actually when I took my first Kopan course, which is in 1978, at the end of the course, he said, and he had taught for a whole month, like 6-7 hours a day, you know, lots of teachings, meditations, all that. He said, not a word of what I've said. I mean, it's possible that not a word of what I've said is true. It's possible. He said, but if you live your life as if these words are true, if you live your life as if the teachings on karma are true, you will be happier. So that's the invitation. Now, whether what we do with it is completely up to us. Buddhism is a great big invitation. It says, the Buddha said, come and see for yourself. You know, if it works for you, if it doesn't harm you, if it helps you, it helps your mind, then please put it in practice. And if it doesn't, it's okay. You can leave it. You know, it's just fine. So, Annabelle was, she's, you know, we talk about karma a lot, and we'll see what happens. But it's, you know, it's a good philosophy of life. I'll say that. It's good to creatively align with this particular notion. The Dalai Lama once said, I was listening to some teachings, he said, if you had to take the teachings between emptiness, which is the wisdom, you know, supreme wisdom, what we call the wisdom of emptiness, and karma, if you had to choose between one or the other, he said, choose karma. It's pretty wild. Like the most important teaching in all of Buddhism is karma. That's what the Dalai Lama said. Why did he say that? Anybody got an idea? Yeah. Wait a minute, let's
So we stream so that others that are at home can listen. So do you mind speaking into the microphone?
The experience, that would be my guess. You know, you're experiencing all these things, feelings, you know, emotions towards other people, toward yourself. Just a guess.
Okay. We'll talk, you know, it's something to think about, you know. We'll talk about, you know, we'll talk about karma as it's basically the creative force. And this was another. I went to I was in Asia back in the day when I was footloose and fancy free, and there was this Thai monk. His name was Ajahn Buddhadasa, and he was when I met him, he was old, but he was very renowned as a scholar and a great practitioner. And he said, and he was very interested in the dialogue between Christianity and Buddhism. And he said, if there's a God in Buddhism, it's the laws of nature. He said, which is basically karma. That's the creative force. That's the creative force. It would be an impersonal God. If you do this, then that happens. Like I said, it's like gravity. We're not being punished. When bad things happen to us, we're not being punished. It's the fruition of our own past actions. If this were poison, okay, and 3 other people had had a drink out of it and it all dropped dead, and I just took a big drink, and I went, oops, should I, am I being punished? Should I feel guilty? No, I should feel regret. I just poisoned myself. It's that way with karma. When we act, when our actions motivated by greed and hatred and ignorance, they always lead to suffering, eventually. In the beginning, we might get a little pleasure out of it, but long-term consequences are suffering. So we don't want that. So that's karma is the creative force in our universe. And then there was a teaching here, gosh, on 96. I can't say too much about it, but it was on the marriage of karma and emptiness. Because I'd asked the guy, it was a Western geshe, which means like a PhD. I'd asked him before he came, because I had done a thesis job at the time, I think. Or maybe Robbie's job, I can't remember. But anyway, I'd asked him to come and teach on how to make emptiness like real. So we could work with it and stuff like that. Because this emptiness is so hard to sort of wrap our mind around and how to make it practical. So he taught this thing on karma and the marriage of karma and emptiness. And I've talked about this in every class. And I'll bet y'all don't remember it. Do you? Does anybody remember what I said? All right. So this is why repetition is important. And I'm doing it for myself too, by the way. So it's if your boss yells at you tomorrow, okay? I may mess this up, so just bear with me. I'm going to try my best. If you walk into the office tomorrow and you didn't finish something that you were supposed to do, and your boss yells at you, what's the first thing that you should think? He's empty. He doesn't exist out there. He's empty of existing out there, in and of himself, independent of my mind labeling him. He's empty. He is my karmic projection. He's my karmic projection. Well, there is data. I'm not saying it's all in my head, but he is my karmic projection. The reason he's yelling at me is because I yelled at him in some former lifetime, or maybe even in this lifetime. He is my karmic projection. Where did that karma come from? Where did it come from? Where does karma come from? Past actions, right? Past actions. So what kind of past action created the cause for somebody to yell at me? You think it was virtuous? No, it was non-virtuous. So I did something either in this life or a former lifetime, and now the cooperative causes have come together for that karma to ripen, and I get yelled at. Now, if I want to see this guy again yelling at me, how can I guarantee to make that happen? Yell back at him. Exactly. I'll yell at him, and then that'll create the karma for him to yell at me. Might not be again in this life, but it'll happen again. That's cyclic existence. That's why, we talked about, well, anyway, I'm not going to get into the present, but I'll just say this. Hating anybody only creates the causes for them to show up again. You get it? It only creates the causes for that karmic appearance to manifest again. That karmic appearance. And so we talked about this. Again, we used the example of, well, a lot of examples, but we use this example, like, all right, this is a gong, right? Everybody see this is a gong, right? We all agree. Now, is this a valid interpretation of this? Yes. But if a dog comes in and sees it, does a dog see a gong? No. A dog would chew on it. It sees it as a chew toy. So who's right? The dog is having a valid experience of a chew toy. You're having a valid experience of a gong. Who's right? We're both right. Because there is no gong or chew toy that exists independent of our mind projecting it, labeling it. Our mind is creating our reality based on past imprints. Okay? So it's like frames of a movie. Right this minute, billions of karmic frames, billions of karmic, we call them bakchaks. These karmic seeds are ripening to force you to see yourself as alive, because that karma will finish, won't it? The karma for you to live, the karma to be alive will finish, but right now you got it. You see yourself alive, you see yourself at Kadampa Center, you see yourself either thinking, this guy's crazy, or some of it makes sense, or I'm confused, or whatever. But it's our mind totally creating our experience. So there is no gong or chew toy that exists independent of my mind labeling it. And all of the frames that are, and I'm talking about visual consciousness, but this also has to do with auditory consciousness, tactile consciousness, gustatory, olfactory, and then we call it mental consciousness is like the sixth one. So all the usual consciousnesses plus the mental consciousness, all of it is just the ripening of our past karma. We plant seeds that were planted or explode, they're ripening right now and forcing us to see ourselves as having whatever experience you're having right now. Now, can you change the experience that you're having right now? Can you change that? No. You can't look at me and say, hey, I'm an elephant. You could say that, but you'd be crazy, wouldn't you? Nobody would agree with you. So it's your karma to see me a certain way. We're forced by our past karma. So if we want to be forced to see ourselves as happy, what do? We practice virtue. It's just enlightened self-interest. It's a duh. It's like, are you kidding? Of course I want to be happy. And I practice virtue. I avoid killing and stealing, the 10 non-virtues, but actually there's 83,000 delusions. There's a lot of them, according to Buddhism. So, we want to be forced to see ourselves as happy, so we have to plant the seeds for that. We have to plant the karmic seeds. Then the cooperative causes come together, and then we see ourselves as happy. If we plant negative seeds, if we harm others, and we plant the seeds for suffering, that'll happen. And it won't be personal, and you won't be being punished. It'll look like you're a victim, but we're not. But according to this system, we're never a victim. I just drank the poison. I just poisoned myself. Nobody's to blame. They should have told me it was poison, but anyway, you get the point. So that's how karma and emptiness are literally intertwined. And that's how the world works. That's how the world works. And if we want to live in accord with reality and how it functions, of course we want to be happy. So of course we don't want to do bad things. And we need to purify the negative karma that we have created so we don't have to suffer in the future. That also makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? So, anyway, I sound like Jerry Falwell. I'm sorry about that. But I have a tendency. So the 10 non-virtuous actions, I'm going to write those down. But again, we have new people here, but it's always good to repeat these. Now, these are the main ones. It's sort of like the 10 Commandments, you might think, but there's actions. 10 non-virtuous actions. So there are 3 of body. There's killing, stealing, taking what's not freely given, and they use the word adultery, but it's harmful sexual whatever. Okay? So killing, stealing, and harmful sexual activity. All right? So 3 of body, 4 of speech. Lying. Now, my kids get me on this, but I get them on that. When you exaggerate stuff, when you say something and you exaggerate it, is that a lie? Yeah. So be careful. It's very tricky. It's so easy to lie. Best thing to do is keep our mouths shut. But anyway, lying is so easy to do. Lying, slander. Slander would be to badmouth somebody, to turn somebody against a friend, somebody else. Like that, right? Slander, harsh speech. And that's a speech that offends other people and is harsh. I mean, we don't have to go into that too much. And then frivolous gossip. Sometimes they translate it as gossip or frivolous speech. But it wastes people's time. We spend an enormous amount of our lives gossiping, wasting time. And what's the karmic consequence of gossiping, by the way? Pardon?
People are going to talk about you.
Well, and when you say stuff, they don't listen. Really? Because you just run your mouth. Oh, he's just a mouther. He's just mouthy. So nobody listens to you. Yeah, and what's the karmic consequence of lying? Yeah. And nobody will believe you. And slander, you won't have many friends. And harsh speech, people are offended by that. And it's just pretty straightforward. stuff. Then there's hatred. Now sometimes this is translated as ill will, but this is just that mind of aversion. So these are the 4 of speech, and now there's the 3 of mind. And I mean, there's, hatred, attachment, and again, sometimes it's translated as greed, craving, just all that. Where you there's all attachment's not bad, by the way. The attachment that gets us into trouble is when we see an object, think that the desirability of the object comes from the side of the object. We exaggerate its qualities, and then we got to have it. And so it's a delusion. That gets us into trouble. And then 10 is ignorance. I'm not going to go into that because we've already talked about it, but there's a lot. We talked about this a lot in the class. So these are the 3, but there's greed, hatred, ignorance, pride, and jealousy are considered to be like the 5 poisonous minds. Sometimes we talk about 3 poisonous minds, the 5 poisonous minds. So we have, and we go, well, I've never killed before. And maybe you have. I certainly have killed insects. And as a doctor, everybody says doctors kill people, but, there are probably some skeletons in the closet. I don't know. I've been in situations where people have died. I don't know. But I certainly haven't done it intentionally. But killing is, that's heavy. We've done it, but we've all killed in past lifetimes, countless times. We've all been mass murderers. We've all been, we want to criticize these people that come in and, mow out, kill 40 people in a school. We've done that countless times before. Not you, the personality you, but your mental continuum in a former lifetime took the form of a being that killed a lot of other beings. That's what we're saying. So not you, but your mental continuum. We've all killed, we've all stolen countless times and will again. We've all, done all this sexual stuff and lying and slander and harsh and we've all done it all countless times. And that karma is the stuff that we have to purify. That's the work that we have to do. Part of the work we have to do. Questions about this? Yeah.
How can you prove that?
Can't. What do you mean? That it's all we've all done it in past lifetimes?
This whole karma business.
Pardon?
This whole karma business.
Well, did you hear the beginning of just a couple of minutes ago? I talked about this. You have we know things 3 ways. We know it by direct perception, we know it by reasoning, and we know it through Scripture. And we rely, as Buddhists, we creatively align with, or the philosophy of Buddhism, we creatively align with the notion of karma. We can't prove it. We're using Scripture to prove it, but the teachings say once we achieve enlightenment, it'll be crystal clear. We'll see it like that. We'll understand it, and we'll see it. But until then, we have to rely on the enlightened one, the Buddha, who gave us these teachings on karma. So you do your line with them, it's an invitation to either use these teachings to help guide your actions and choices or not. Does that answer your question? That's the answer. You're right. You don't have to believe it, and we can't prove it. That's what I said it earlier. We can't prove it. But if we live this way, and 2,500 years of experience would say, if we live this way, we will be happier. Our mind will be clearer. We'll create less ick and our life will go better. Just something to check out. Lama Yeshe used to always say, people would ask questions like that. He'd say, check it out, dear. Call everybody dear. Yeah.
So my question is, where does it say that, and how can we know? Well, how can Buddhists know for sure that that's what it says for, like, that they did kill or like do all those things in copious amounts? You know,
See, I'm not. I don't think I'm making this stuff up.
Yeah.
I'm just giving you what the scriptures say. Right?
Can you give like an example of what the scriptures say? They like.
Give me a question, and I'll give you an example.
How do they explain that that in our past lives we killed many people? Like,
It's a good question.
Yeah.
I'll give you a quick answer. The Buddhist perspective of mind is it's beginningless. You know, like you go back, this moment of mind was preceded by what? A former moment of mind, preceded by a former moment of mind. If you just take time, you can never say there was a beginning to time, can you? Because there was always a moment before that. In the same way we say mind is the same way. The mind of this life was preceded by the mind of a former life. See, mind is formless. The body is the product of sperm and egg, no problem. But the mind is formless. And the mind goes back and back and back through, you know, the life just before this life. And then that life, the mind, when you were born into the life before this life, that mind came from the former life, and so on. So the Buddhists posit that there's no beginning to mind and there's no end to mind. So it's possible. Can't prove it, but the scriptures say that because there's no beginning, and we've been in every possible relationship with everybody, parents and children and everything. For example, you've been my mother in past lifetimes, countless times. I just don't remember you. Hi. You know, seriously, the teachings say that. So it's a way of opening up our mind to possibilities, that we're no better than the people that are the mass murderers. We want to hold ourselves up as being somehow better than the people that do some of the more egregious things. But we've done it all. That's the point. And so, and also the point is we need to purify that karma. So when we do purification practices, we want to purify not only the killing of this life, but all of our future lifetimes. And the stealing of this life and all of our future lifetimes. Previous lifetimes. And the sexual misconduct of this life, but all of our previous lifetimes. So we don't have to suffer in the future. That's the teachings. Yeah, I'm not, that's a good question, though. Thank you for asking it. All right. So I want to move on here. Okay, go ahead.
So thank you for the lecture. This is wonderful. So speaking of non-virtuous actions, so stopping a person from doing non-virtuous action in front of you, is that a good thing? But then you are again convoluted. You are again coming into the circle of karma, and you are again writing your next incarnation. I thought the purpose of this is to get free from life and death.
Yeah.
Then stopping us, so we don't know. Maybe they both are, means in this lifetime, the victim is compensating what did in the past lifetime, but I can't see the person getting victimized. And if I intervene, I'm writing my own karma and getting few more births.
So am I hearing you say that if you see somebody harming somebody else and you stop them, well, that's just the fruition of their karma, and you shouldn't get in the way of letting that play itself out? Is that kind of what you're saying?
No, one should intervene, one should stop and help the victim.
Yes.
But then who are we to decide? And then I don't know who is actually the victim if this is a karma cycle.
Yeah. Well, it's a great question. And that's where wisdom comes in. We don't know. But we want to do the right thing. And so based on the wisdom, whatever wisdom we have, if we see somebody harming somebody else, and it's based on what we understand, we try to stop it. You know, it doesn't, there are different kinds of, I'm not going to get into it, but there's karma that's created within samsara that's based on ignorance. It's not based on the wisdom of emptiness. Karma that's created based on the wisdom of emptiness is the cause to be free from the cycle of death and rebirth. The karma that's created based on ignorance, which is the selfish, self-centered I, even if it's virtue, even if it's generosity and kindness and compassion, whatever, we're still caught in the cycle of samsara. But it's helping us get out. It's like a ladder helping us get to the next level where we can finally escape. Yeah.
I know you want to move on, so I'll just try to make something short here. And maybe this is, I think, more of a comment, but I'd like your thoughts on it. I don't pretend to understand the concept of, you know, infinite lifetimes or beginningless time or whatever. But when I think about this, the way that I think it kind of helps me is it helps me to think about, or it helps me to visualize the interdependence of everything, and how like everything that I do or everything that I see in front of me is the result of an infinitely long series of things that happened or decisions someone made. And this, I feel a little better about this when I think of it as maybe a tool for understanding that better. Personally, to me in this moment, I guess I don't particularly care whether I was a mass murderer in a previous life, right? Because I'm here now.
Yeah.
But maybe that helps me think about that differently, and I just wonder if you have thoughts on that.
Yeah. What you said made sense to me. If it helps your mind, that's the point. That's the point. See, this is Buddhism has a worldview. It's different. Like Christianity, I mean, if you look at all the religious traditions, they all literally based on the golden rule, aren't they? If you harm, it's very karmically based. That, you know, all the religions talk about being kind and compassionate and not harming and so on and so forth. And then there are offshoots where things can go crazy, but you know, all the religious traditions have a similar message of compassion and kindness and like that. And that helps us create the karma for happiness. And so Buddhism's different. It's just different. It's not, for some people it's better, you know, like, you know, for some people it's better. For some people it's a problem and they don't come back. There are thousands of people have been through this place over the years. And for some people, it really makes sense and it helps their mind and they can put it into practice and they find that their lives, their relationships, everything works better. And for other people, it's just not a good karmic fit. It's not a good fit. They don't have the karmic, they don't have the karma to connect with Buddha Dharma, and that's okay. You know, Buddhism doesn't think we're the one. You gotta be a Buddhist or you're going to hell. No, well, probably all going to hell anyway, but that's another story. Excuse me. All right, what constitutes virtue and non-virtue? We've talked about this a little bit. The key factor in virtue is what? What's the key factor? Intention, right. So the key factor is intention. And what intention always leads to happiness? Actions. If you have what kind of intention is going to always lead to happiness? Non-self-cherishing. So we say sometimes actions, well, I didn't say this. Nagarjuna said this. He was a great Buddhist saint from many decades ago, or thousands of years ago, said that actions motivated by non-attachment, the intention was non-attachment, non-hatred, non-ignorance. Those actions will always lead to happiness. But guess what? We got to really be tuned in. We have to be aware. We have to be self-aware. We have to be mindful before we open our mouth, before we move our body, before we do anything, what our intention is. Because that's going to determine whether the karma is positive or negative. So important. So important. Okay. I'm not going to read all of this. 4 opponent powers. We've got to do that again. A little review here. We'll get our students up to speed. Y'all need to take notes here now. This is good. Good stuff. 4 opponent powers. Now, by golly, I know that we went over this enough. Come on, help me. First one is, we call them the 4 opponents. This is how you purify your negative karma, by the way. First thing is refuge. We say refuge. We say refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and compassion. But sometimes they'll say, well, in some teachings I've heard that all of our negative actions have been either directed toward the 3 jewels or other sentient beings. So taking refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha helps repair that, relationship, and compassion helps repair the relationship with all sentient beings. But refuge is like the basis for this practice, okay? Then the second one is regret. All right? And so this requires being honest. It's like, did I do something wrong? Did I harm others? Did I do something that, and we all have these things. When we sit in meditation, if you ever do a retreat more than a couple of days, like if you sit for a couple of weeks in retreat, you will be blown away by how much stuff comes up. And you go, oh, ouch, did I do that? It's there in our mind, and we have no idea what's going to pop up in any particular moment in our meditation practice. But it's so important in this purification. So let's say today, me and my 11-year-old got into a little skirmish. So I apologized to her, and she apologized to me. So I said, I'm sorry. I got a little bit upset because, you were whatever. And then, of course, she told me I was worse than her and whatever. So, but I regretted it, okay? Then the third is the remedy, all right? And the remedy could be an apology. It could be doing something for other people. It could be working, dedicating a day working for Habitat for Humanity for the happiness of all living beings. It could be doing the 100-syllable Vajrasattva mantra 100,000 times, or doing full-length prostrations to purify the negative karma of body, or making these little Buddha images called sattsas. There's so many different ways. The remedy, though, is you can see that there has to be something there. You have to do something. So I think it demonstrates the sincerity of our regret. And then last but not least, in fact, the most important one is what? Resolve. Resolve what? To not do it again. Because we'll just do it again in this lifetime. We might do something bad, and then we'll go through this, and this, but we won't do this one. We won't resolve to not do it again. So we have to resolve, and the resolution might be, I resolve not to do it for an hour. Let's say, for an example, if you're somebody who's tendency toward anger or attachment or whatever your principal delusion is, you might resolve to do it for a period of time where you actually can be mindful and refrain from that. Or it might be a day, or I think I have a lot of friends that are in I don't want to say rehab, but recovery, and one day at a time, isn't it? Isn't that the way it is? One day at a time. Okay, so those are 4 opponents. Very important. Okay. 4 laws of karma. So I'm going to do the review here real fast. All right, what are the 4 laws of karma? So you guys came on the good night, the students. 4 laws of karma. That's right. Number 1, it's definite. What does that mean? If you plant an acorn, are you going to get a banana tree? No. If you plant a positive action, are you going to get happiness? Yes. So an action that brings you happiness is virtue. Okay? And it's definite. Positive actions always eventually lead to happiness. And negative actions, and we've defined negative actions, always lead to what? Cause who to suffer? It causes us to suffer, causes me to suffer. So karma is definite. There's no negotiating with it. This is gravity. This is gravity. It's not personal. God's not punishing us. We're not being punished. We're punishing ourselves. Anyway, our former actions are ripening and causing us to suffer. It's not punishment. All right? So that's, number 2. What's that? Number 2 is what? Expandable. It's increasing, ever increasing. Just like that oak, the little acorn to the oak tree. Today, if you planted it today, you come back in a week and you might actually see a little seedling, right? You didn't see all the changes that went through to get that seedling, but it's always growing. So the karmic seeds that we plant, be them negative or positive, could be a little tiny thing like a kind word to somebody, or making an offering, or being mean, or a careless word or thought. That those karmic seeds are always growing. So that's why I always think whenever I do something really stupid, I try to clean it up as quick as I can, because I have a lot of faith in this one. The longer you wait to clean up a mess, the bigger it gets, the harder it is to straighten it up. So karma is expandable. So you need to be aware of that. Then what else? That's right. Can't experience result without creating the cause. Yeah, this is the Buddha said this. This is the Buddha's realization of karma. You cannot, anything that's ever happened to us in our lives is the fruit of past karma. And if we want the future to go well, we got to create the cause for it. So this is good news, isn't it? Because we can literally shape our future by the choices we make. We can shape our whole life by the choices. And anything that happens to us is the karmic fruit of former actions. And then 4th is what? Never lost, which is bad news or good news. Really, it could be something positive. Like I said, a smile or a kind word to somebody, planted a karmic seed, it's never lost. And maybe in, next lifetime or 10 lifetimes from now, you win the lottery. I'm not sure that's a good thing, but something good happens. So karmic seeds are never lost. Negative seeds can be purified. We don't want to purify positive seeds, right? We want those to grow. But negative seeds that are going to cause suffering, can be purified, but only through direct realization of emptiness. But up until then, we can weaken the force of our negative seeds by doing purification practices. But remembering those 4 opponent powers and doing the practices that we can do to questions about that. Now, can I prove this? No. But this is the Buddhist view. This is the Buddhist worldview, and we invite people to try it on for size. All right, so that's the fourth. Okay, so I have rammed through all of this data here, but I'm gonna here's the quiz. I think I've covered most of this. It says, why is understanding karma so important? So let me have one person raise your hand. Why is karma? Yeah. That's fine.
Hi, good evening, everybody. This is my first time here, and thank you for allowing me to come. I just think it's overwhelmingly important to live your life in the best way possible each and every day, because I think a lot of this goes with another saying that I know: you reap what you sow. Mm-hmm. And if you don't really strive internally with your heart to be a better person and follow some simple rules that have been laid out here for thousands of years, eons ago, by very smart people, you just kind of meander through life. And if you put that good vibe out there and do good things, those things will come back to you. You said a boomerang effect earlier. I think it's true.
Yeah. I mean,
right?
We're all, what goes around comes around. Everybody,
yes. You
hear it all the time, karmic
right.
Boomerang. I got a couple of boomerangs at home. I meant to bring one tonight, but I didn't. So what is a complete karmic action? So I'm not going to, does anybody remember what a complete karmic action is? There are 4 aspects of it. Yeah. There's, anybody remember? So there's, yeah.
You have the intention,
Intention,
the object,
an object,
the action, the rejoicing.
and the rejoicing. So a complete karmic action, either positive or negative, has the potential to project a whole lifetime. Okay? Either a lifetime as in a what we'd call a fortuitous lifetime, or a lifetime in a joyless realm. All created by our mind. Okay? Then there's the difference between throwing and completing karma. I'm not going to go into that. But the throwing karma, that's what happens at the time of death. And that's why you can be a jerk your whole life. And if you're lucky, at the time of death, if you remember compassion and loving kindness, and that karma arises, that can be the throwing karma for your next lifetime to be a good one. But, for example, but then the completing karma is, again, the throwing karma has to have those 4 things, but the completing karma would be any karmic action that doesn't have all 4 of those, and that fills in the picture. So you've got the throwing karma is literally the sketch of a human being, and the completing karma is the quality of that person's life. They're poor, they're wealthy, they're abused, they're loved, they're kind, they're mean, all of the different aspects that make up a person's life and their experience are all the result of the completing karma. All right, generally there are 4 results of karma. I'm not going to go into that. What is the most important aspect of the nature of virtuous actions? We already talked about that, didn't we? Intention. Purification. What are the 4 remedies? We did it. That was the quiz, the final exam, by the way. So I want to thank everyone for for showing up, because it gives, always, my experience having done this for a while is that I always learn so much more than you do, I hope. Because it makes, it really is a challenge and kind of a blessing to be asked to give these teachings, because then you really have to start looking at my own life in terms of these again and remembering these, how important these teachings are to me. So thank you for, one of my friends who's a Zen teacher, she said, thank you for showing up so that I could train myself. Sherry Huber, I don't know if you know her, but she's like one of my heroes. She's a Zen teacher. So thank you for showing up so that I could train myself. Hopefully, I believe in my heart of hearts that we planted a lot of seeds, and I believe that they're mostly virtuous seeds. So we'll spend just a minute and just be quiet and imagine, close your eyes and imagine that there's a light from your heart, in the center of your chest. That's like your mind, and like this, but it's like a sun, and billions of beams of light going out from your heart, each carrying the karmic seeds of happiness and the causes of happiness to universal living beings. And then, we rejoice that you made the effort to get yourself here and to try to learn these teachings, and to put them, and hopefully, if you find something helpful, you'll put it in practice. Okay, that's it.
So
Karma's done.
Thank you, Don.
So George Chernoff, please, Venerable George Chernoff. Now, George is he is a good guy. I've known him forever, like I said, but he will answer all the questions, and any of the confusion that I've created, he will clear it right up. I promise you. He's great. And he'll be here in just a few weeks.
Thank you, Don. Thanks for coming up and showing up and teaching us about karma. It's awesome. So just a quick announcement. This is our last karma class. The next DB module will start with Death and Rebirth. Steep will be the instructor. That starts on November 4th and goes through December 9th. We are skipping the week of Thanksgiving, though. And the actual Venerable George will be teaching those first 2 Mondays. So come on and, to DB on those Mondays. And then, so we have a couple weeks off, but don't worry, there's still lots to do. There's a Tara retreat this weekend. If you do plan to come, and I encourage you to do so, Geshe Gelik will be leading that, but do please go online and register for that so that we can prepare and make sure we have enough materials and everything for that retreat, which is this Saturday and Sunday. And then also dinners at 6 o'clock at Aladdin's is this Saturday as well. And I think that's all. So stay tuned for more exciting things. And do you want to explain?
Does anybody know who Tara is? Tara, where is she? The green lady. All right, so she's a manifestation of the enlightened mind of all the Buddhas, but takes a female form, and she symbolizes compassionate action. So doing practices using this particular visualization with this kind of understanding helps us develop compassion and the energy to put it into action. So that's the point of it. It's Tantra. It's a more esoteric part of Buddhism, but it's also very very powerful to just come and put those imprints in your mind.
And just to piggyback on that, since we did talk about previous lives tonight a little bit, Venerable George, the first weekend that he's here, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, he's doing a workshop on the Jataka tales. And those are stories, and a lot of times they're used for children's books, and so they're very, like, I guess tangible is the word, but they're Buddha's previous lives that he was living as a bodhisattva. So they're very fun. It should be a great weekend. So be sure to come for that. And then Gary, you had something?
If anybody feels a wave of insomnia coming on Friday, because of a prior commitment here, we can't begin setting up for Tara till 10 o'clock Friday night. So we're going to do a sort of Tara setup, midnight bowling, pizza sort of party here. Whatever we got to do to attract someone. But they have announced it. So show up. If you can't sleep, show up Friday night at 10 o'clock. We'll all be here for a few hours.
And if you want to stay and continue the chat, we'll meet in the back here and have a little discussion group like right now. So feel free to stay and chat. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Don.